I warned you that bacon wasn't welcome on this street. Karen, I get to eat whatever I choose. Cut the ear out. I never pictured things spiraling to this point. I honestly didn't think Karen's craziness could climb this high. I figured her chaos, and that helmet of a haircut, stayed confined to fake tickets, snooping, and the typical garbage a self-appointed block dictator lives on. For ages, it was sticker placement, mailbox tilt, and trash bin timing. Irritating, sure, but bearable. Then the meeting happened, the one that flipped everything upside down. Karen stood behind the podium, beaming like she'd just invented the wheel, declaring that pork and bacon were now forbidden across the community. She announced it like scripture. A handful of fools even applauded. I chuckled, sure it was a joke, until she banged the gavel down. I demanded to know why grown adults needed permission for their protein choices, and Karen replied that pork was impure, and she wanted the neighborhood spotless. The room fell dead silent. That's the moment I realized reason had exited the building. From that night forward, Karen fixated on me like a guided missile. Citations began showing up for alleged pork eating. No proof, just suspicion. My mailbox filled with rose-colored slips accusing me of moral rot. Meanwhile, the guy 3 doors down grilling burgers never got touched. It felt calculated, targeted, intentional. I began keeping records, snapshots, timestamps, audio, because something in her stare told me this had nothing to do with food. She'd wander past my yard, inhaling dramatically, jotting notes like some unhinged food inspector. Once, she asked outright whether my shopping bags held banned goods. I told her to stay in her own lane. She just smirked and wrote up another citation. Board members started dodging eye contact with me, acting like this was all perfectly fine. That quiet told me far more than her yelling ever had. I wasn't even someone who cared much for bacon or pork, which somehow made the whole thing sting worse. This had nothing to do with appetite. It was about power. Even so, barely anyone dared push back against her. Neighbors gave nervous smiles, nodded along in meetings, then muttered complaints once safely in their driveways. Everybody dreaded fines, liens, or landing on her radar next. That dread kept the whole street in line. Days later, Karen ramped things up further. She mailed out a slick newsletter declaring a total meat ban. Chicken, beef, fish, all of it. She pointed fingers at obesity, hostility, environmental karma, and spiritual imbalance, spouting jargon like a broken wellness podcast on repeat. I genuinely assumed I'd misread it. At the emergency meeting, she confirmed it with pride, wedged into a chair that clearly wanted no part of her speech. Something in me finally cracked. Hypocrisy makes a noise, and it rang through that whole room. I rose, asked who'd actually approve this, and got nothing but blank stares and silence. Karen grinned and said leadership meant tough calls for the feeble-minded. That sealed it. I quit caring about keeping the peace. I drove home and loaded up on bacon, steak, sausage, the entire outlawed spread. Not to gorge myself, but to make a statement. The following evening, I posted up on my porch, pan sizzling beside me, chewing unhurried, offering a friendly wave as Karen's patrol car rolled by. She slammed on the brakes, eyes practically popping out, and started scrawling tickets, like she was hitting the jackpot. I never argued. I stuck each one to my fridge, like a badge of honor. The citations piled up daily: aggressive chewing, public protein display, corrupting minors' morals. Every notice crazier than the one before. I paid exactly 0 of them. I wanted her more furious, more careless, more visible. I needed witnesses, a pattern, hard evidence. What I hadn't grasped yet was that Karen had stopped viewing this as rule enforcement. She saw enemies, and the second she marked me as one, the block quit being a home and turned into her personal stage. I kept the grill running every evening, grinning wider while phones filmed quietly. Neighbors peeked through blinds, and the tension kept building because everyone could feel this fixation racing towards something loud, public, and unavoidable. Then, oddly, Karen went quiet. No letters. The mailbox stayed empty, the porch untouched, the pink notices vanished. For a moment, I wondered if the board had finally reined her in, or if common sense had caught up to her. That relief lasted exactly 1 weekend. Monday afternoon, I was back on the porch, skillet smoking, bacon crackling, a steak resting beside it like a dare. The street sat quiet until Karen showed up, striding toward me without her clipboard this time. Her smile was stiff, practiced. The kind people wear when they're convinced they're on the side of righteousness. She demanded to know why my fine sat unpaid and why I kept choosing to be the neighborhood's villain. I answered calmly that she held no authority over my body, my meals, or my own porch. I told her she was trampling basic rights and needed to back off. Neighbors lingered nearby, playing at gardening, phones half lifted. A twitch crossed Karen's face. She said she'd tried warning me, that rules existed as mercy, and defiance came with a price. Then her hand dove into her purse. The metal caught the light before my mind could process it. A handgun, compact but undeniably real, aimed straight at my chest. The whole street went still. Somebody gasped. Karen's voice trembled as she ordered me to pay up now, or she'd end the problem for good. I threw my hands up, pulse hammering, telling her this was reckless, criminal, and something she couldn't take back. She just kept ranting about order, cleanliness, obedience. I figured she was bluffing, high on her own power trip. So I edged sideways toward my front door. A gunshot tore through the air as she fired into the sky. Birds scattered from the trees. Glass rattled in every window nearby. Screaming erupted. I hit the ground. Neighbors were yelling, kids were crying, phones caught every second of it. Karen stood frozen, weapon still raised, eyes wild, only now grasping she'd crossed a line with no way back. Sirens grew louder in the distance while she kept insisting I'd pushed her to it, as if repeating it could rewrite what happened. Every moment dragged on, burning itself into memory, while witnesses closed in, evidence piled up, and Karen's grip on the neighborhood crumbled under her own weight. The police arrived before Karen could dream up another excuse. Cruisers sealed off the street, officers advancing fast, weapons out, commands sharp. Karen tried talking first, but a dozen phones were already trained on her, screens lit with proof. She insisted she'd felt endangered, yet the footage laid out everything, from the stalking to the warning shot. They cuffed her, disarmed her, read her rights, while she shrieked about bylaws and hygiene. Neighbors who'd once stayed silent now stepped up, handing over videos, letters, newsletters, fine slips. The board members showed up sweating, feigning shock until officers asked who'd approved food-based enforcement in the first place. Silence, again, answered for them. Karen's collapse was swift and merciless. The HOA's emergency powers got suspended. Her finances went under audit. Every fine she'd handed out was voided. Charges piled on fast: aggravated assault, reckless discharge of a firearm, harassment, impersonating an official. Watching her try to lecture an actual cop about community standards was almost poetic justice. By nightfall, news vans crowded the curb. Reporters ate up the story: wellness fanatic versus backyard bacon. Karen got walked past the cameras, hair a wreck, all her swagger gone. She screamed my name like a curse, threatening lawsuits, vowing comebacks and redemption. Nobody paid attention. In the days after, the block finally exhaled. Meetings resumed under neutral mediators. Regulations went back to covering lawns and fences, not what people ate for dinner. Apologies came in quiet, awkward, shamefaced. I accepted nearly all of them. Karen's house eventually went into foreclosure, buried under legal costs. Her name turned into a warning label for overreach. Kids biked freely down the street again. Grills lit up across the neighborhood, smoke curling upward like a celebration. I never filed a lawsuit. I didn't have to. The evidence spoke for itself. Control had finally run into consequence, and that lesson burned deeper than any fine ever managed to.